All right, we got some NFL news and rumors coming up around a couple of key players that could be moving this offseason, but Super Bowl week is upon us, and I just want to know, not who you think's going to win, who are you rooting for? Are you rooting for the Chiefs three-peat, or are you rooting for the Eagles to prevent that from happening? Type KC if you're rooting for the Chiefs, or PHI if you're rooting for the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm Harrison Graham. Welcome into Four Verts, an NFL and college football show where we post daily football content. Cooper Kupp is on the trade market. He took to social media announcing that the Rams are going to work with him to try and find a trade for him, as the money he's set to make is just too much for LA. So they're going to try to find a trade for him. And look, it's not surprising. His cap hit for the upcoming season is almost $30 million for the Rams. He's not what he was. He has declined rather significantly the last 3 years due to injuries and also just getting older. I mean, think about where he was in 2021. He had more yards that year almost than the last 3 years combined. I mean, the last 3 years combined, he's got like 2,300 yards. In 2021, he had almost 2,000. So still a good player, still a number 2, 3 for sure, depending on the type of team that he's on, but that doesn't equate to a $30 million cap hit. So the Rams are going to try to trade him. If they trade him, they can save about half of that. If they cut him with a pre-June 1 designation, they can save about half as well. Here's the issue, and I think the problem that the Rams are going to run into is any team that trades for Kupp still inherits a $20 million cap hit for 2025. Are there teams out there that can take that on? Yes, but are there teams out there that are willing to take that on? I say no, because the Rams don't have a choice but to shed him from their roster if they can't find a trade. So if you're a team that is interested in Cooper Kupp, you're like, well, do I want to bring him on for $20 million guaranteed on my cap, or do I want him to get cut by the Rams and then maybe sign him for like $10, $11 million bucks? I'd rather do the latter. Now, you're going to be competing with other teams if he hits the open market, but who is trading for Cooper Kupp for a $20 million cap hit? I just don't think that's going to happen. Now, Ian Rappaport, this being aggregated by Underdog NFL, saying that the Rams are willing to eat some of the money on the contract, but that's two different things. That's some of the cash, the guaranteed money he is owed. The cap hit's the cap hit. Like, unless he agrees to a pay cut and restructure with the Rams before getting traded, the team that acquires him takes on $20 million on their cap, which is not an insignificant number for a fringe 2, number 3 receiver who's well out of his prime and has injury issues. Like, I just don't think that team is out there. Now, maybe a team like Washington or the Patriots who just have a shit ton of cap space and say, you know what, we'll just do it so we don't have to compete with other teams on the free agent market for him. And I do think all these teams listed here, and probably a few more, would be interested in Kupp if he did hit free agency. But again, the Bills couldn't even do it with the $20 million cap. They don't even have enough money. I mean, they could move money around to do it, but I don't think they're doing that. Like, is Jerry Jones doing it? I just don't see it. Now, I think these are all teams, like, if he hits the open market and you can get him for 8, 10, 11 million bucks, yeah, sure, we'll sign him. 20 million? I don't think so. He's just not that level player at this point in time. Now, would you want Cooper Kupp on your favorite team? Type Y for yes, type in for no. I think most of us would say yes, but it all depends on price, contract, etc. I'm not trading for that contract if I'm an NFL team looking to upgrade my wide receiver room. I'd rather just sign someone for much less who can probably give me similar contributions. Okay, Kirk Cousins. Haven't heard about him from him in a while. He obviously got benched late in the season for Michael Penix Jr. due to struggles, and he hopped on Good Morning Football today and, said, I feel like I still have a lot of good football on me, and offered what could be an explanation for why he really struggled those last several games before getting benched. And he said, against the Saints, which was in Week 10, by the way, I got hit pretty good in my right shoulder and elbow, and from there, kind of dealing with that was something I was working through and just never really could get it to where I wanted it. And my first thought as well, aging quarterback, still wants to play and be a starter. It's like, yeah, this is PR agent talk. Like, let's get Kirk's name back out there and let's cook something up to explain why he fell off a cliff. But then I dove into the numbers, which we're going to show you in a second. One, the Falcons lost that game, and then 3 more, 4 straight, barely beat the Raiders, then he got benched. And Kirk really struggled. And we were all thinking, well, he's just washed, the Achilles, it's caught up to him. But I think what we forgot was he actually was playing pretty damn well before those final 5 games before he got benched. And the numbers would suggest drastically different players, right? I mean, his completion percentage dropped 7%. The volume of pass yards per game was down. He was throwing picks early still, but he was throwing way more touchdowns. I mean, 17-7, basically 2 to just less than 1 in the first 9 games, and then 1 touchdown to 9 picks in the last 5. QB rating 40-point difference. Like, you look at this and you're like, okay, could some of this just be wear and tear of a season coming off an Achilles? Yes. I don't think that explains a 40 QB rating drop-off. I think there's something to this. I think he probably did bang up his arm, because remember early in the year it was like first couple games, the zip's not there, but then it got a little better, not quite to what it was before the Achilles, but then it just fell off a cliff, and you're like, what's going on here? And it's like, well, maybe he had a shoulder and elbow problem. So I'm kind of buying what Kirk Cousins is selling here. Now, caution here, I'm not sitting here saying some team should make him their franchise guy, but if the Falcons cut him, which most of us think they will if they can't get a trade, which has a no trade clause, and they cut him, I think there's teams out there that can make sense as for a bridge guy and a 1 or 2 year deal. I think we're going to see the Russell Wilson thing again. Falcons are going to cut him because he has a no trade clause and isn't going to agree to a trade. He's going to want to control where he wants. And he'll sign a cheap deal because Atlanta's still paying him this year, and he'll try to prove himself. You know, Russell Wilson didn't have a great year in Pittsburgh, but he had a good enough year where he's going to continue his career. Like, either Pittsburgh will re-sign him or the Raiders will sign him, and he'll be a starter. I think that's very on the table for Kirk Cousins if he's healthy. If he goes to the right situation and at least plays like the 20th best quarterback in the league, guys like that always have jobs because there's 32 of them in this league. So I'll look at these 5 teams. Cleveland, don't love the weather component there. Once you get into November, December, we kind of saw that with Russ as it got colder. He wasn't as effective, but you could do worse than Kirk Cousins if you're the Browns. Colts, that would depend on what they want to do with Anthony Richardson. Is he their starter? Is he not? Giants, if they miss out on a quarterback, like if QBs go 1-2, maybe New York brings him in as kind of a 1-year guy. The Raiders could certainly make sense. They're drafting 6th. And then the Saints, if they were to shed Derek Carr, which they're probably going to have to given their cap situation, well, you could pay Kirk Cousins the vet minimum, Pittsburgh style, because he's getting paid by Atlanta. So I think those are 5 teams that could make some sense. Honestly, I probably like the Saints situation or the Raiders because it's indoors. And especially the Raiders have just had bad QB play for a few years. If he plays decent there, like, he might get a second year. Who knows? So it'll be interesting to see. And when I really dove into those numbers, I was like, wow, like maybe he's not completely washed if he can get healthy. Plus, he'll be an extra year removed from the Achilles. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued to see if he can kind of turn things around in 2025 with a new team. What say you? Where will Kirk Cousins play next season? If you had to predict it, drop a team in the comments below. I really do think it depends on the draft carousel. Where does Cam Ward end up? Where does Shedeur Sanders? And if you're Cousins, maybe you wait for the draft, because remember last year you signed with Atlanta and then they drafted a quarterback. So he might wait and see what these teams do in the draft first, assuming he does get cut. Okay, that's going to do it for this edition of 4 Verts. If you want more football content on a daily basis, we're NFL heavy right now with the college football offseason. So we'll continue to pump out the NFL videos. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and we'll see you guys next time.